America just lost 23,000 jobs. So explain this to me, everyone. Why did employment go down? 23,000 payroll jobs disappeared in July. May and June were revised downward by another 103 jobs. The number of people participating in the labor force completely fell. And yet the number you're going to hear politicians bragging about is a whopping 4.1% unemployment rate. Now, before anyone starts yelling, the numbers are rigged, here are the facts. They're not. What's happening is actually more important. The unemployment rate does not measure how many people or how many Americans don't have jobs. And once you understand who the government counts and who it doesn't, well, you'll understand how Americans can lose jobs while the unemployment rate gets better on paper. I'm Esco Latimer, and welcome to Money and Politics Simplified, where we don't stop at the political headlines. We like to look underneath it, because whether the politician has an R or a D beside their name, if they're going to use economic stats to convince you, their constituents, the economy is doing great or the economy is doing terrible, you need to understand what those numbers actually measure. And today's jobs report is a perfect example of that. Then, as always, we're going to simplify it for you. The Bureau of Labor and Stats, aka BLS, released the July 2026 unemployment rate report today. And here's the headline. Total non-farm payroll, better known as NFP, unemployment declined by 23,000 jobs in July. That's not my number, everyone. That's not Fox News. That's not MSNBC or CNN. That's the United States Bureau of Labor and Stats. But in that very same report, BLS says the unemployment rate went from 4.2 in June to 4.1 in July. So America lost payroll jobs, but the unemployment goes down? Yes. And before anyone screams conspiracy, we need to understand something important. Those numbers come from two different surveys that they don't tell you about. BLS uses an establishment survey to estimate payroll employment by asking businesses and government agencies about their payrolls. The unemployment rate comes from a separate household survey. Most of the time, you're not told that. So these two numbers are measuring completely different things. And that's where it gets interesting. Here's one of the biggest misunderstandings in American politics. If you don't have a job, that does not automatically mean the government considers you unemployed. I know, sounds weird, but let me explain. To be counted as unemployed in the official sense, for its official unemployment rate, generally you have to be without a job, available for work, and actively looking for work. You know those three things that they say to you in an unemployment office. But stop looking. You can be moved outside the labor force that is counted. And once you're outside the labor force, you are included in the denominator used to calculate the official unemployment rate any longer. Now, look what happened in July. According to the BLS household data, the number of unemployed people actually fell to 162.1 million. That's approximately 87,000 fewer employed people in that survey. But here's what the number I want you to remember. The civilian labor force fell by approximately 264,000 people. At the same time, the number classified as not in the labor force increased by roughly 381,000. So the unemployment rate can fall even while employment is falling. Why? Because the unemployment rate isn't how many Americans don't have jobs. It's essentially of the people participating in the labor force, how many meet the definition of unemployed. Those three things I just said earlier. Those are two different questions. Now let's dig into payroll numbers. Local government education lost 50,000 jobs. Retail lost 19,000. Financial activities continued downward trending, losing another 14,000. Healthcare was one of the bright spots, adding 22,000 jobs. But even healthcare hiring was slower than its average over the previous 12 months. And here's another number that jumped out at me, everybody. During the prior 12 months, payroll employment had increased by an average of only about 34,000 jobs per month. Then July comes in at a negative 23,000 jobs. And it gets worse when you look backward. May was originally reported at plus 129,000 jobs. It has now been revised down 63,000. June was originally 57,000. Now it's 20,000. Together, May and June were revised downward by 103,000 jobs. That's very significant, less jobs, because when you're evaluating the economy, don't watch this month's headline. Watch what happens to last month's headline after the cameras leave. This is the part I don't want buried. Overall unemployment is at 4.1. White unemployment is 3.6. This is not about race or racism. Black unemployment is 6.3. That's a 2.7% gap. And while the black unemployment rate itself declined in July, look underneath it. BLS estimates that black employment in the household survey fell from approximately 20.5 million in June to 20.3 million in July. At the same time, remember this, black labor force participation fell from 61.9 to 61.3. So I don't want someone simply putting up a graph and it says black unemployment fell. Everything is getting better. You must look at the entire picture. The estimated number of black people working went down, and that means they're not participating in the workforce. Remember that? You have to participate. The black labor force got smaller, and the unemployment rate went down because of the lack of participating. Exactly, everyone. All three things can be true simultaneously. That's precisely why we have to stop allowing politicians from either party to hand us one number and tell us that is the one number that represents the entire American economy in a whole, because it just doesn't. And here's another unemployment number I want you to know. It's called U6. The official unemployment rate you hear on television is U3. Most people don't know that. U6 is broader. It includes the official unemployed, people marginally attached to the labor force, and people working part-time for economic reasons who would prefer full-time work. July's U3 unemployment rate, 4.1. But July's U6 rate, 7.9. Remember, because they want to be full-time. That does not mean 4.1 number is fake. It isn't. It means different measurements answer different questions, and it has to be broken out for everyone. And when we're trying to figure out how regular Americans are actually doing, I want more than the prettiest number available. I want the facts. You know what I'm asking? Give it to me. Don't give me the fluff. And now you understand the political game that's coming here soon. Someone can say unemployment fell to 4.1. The economy is strong, and 4.1 is the official number. Someone else can say America lost 23,000 payroll jobs in July, and May and June are revised downward by another 103,000. And those numbers are official as well. That's why Money in Politics Simplified exists, everyone, because I don't want the Republican number. I don't want the Democratic number. I want the whole damn spreadsheet. And when I look at the whole spreadsheet, I don't want to see a reason to panic, but I absolutely see the reason to pay attention. Payroll employment fell. Facts. Labor force participation is down across all groups. Facts. That's a bad thing. The labor force shrank again. That's a bad thing. Previous months were revised downward. Another bad thing. And black unemployment remains substantially higher than white unemployment. That's a bad thing, but that's pretty normal. Not shocking, and it's not because blacks are lazy. We just don't get the same opportunities as our white counterparts for whatever reason. Those aren't partisan talking points. Those are numbers from federal government's own reporting department. Here's the takeaway. America can lose payroll jobs. The number of employed people can decline. People can leave the labor force, and the unemployment rate can still fall because of those things. Those statements don't necessarily contradict each other because the stats measure completely different things. That's why one number, one economic number, should never become the entire economic story. They need to clarify it. They often don't, and most people don't even know to ask. A 4.1 unemployment rate sounds good. I will admit that. But Americans deserve more than a good-looking number and a good-looking headline. If unemployment is falling If people are leaving the labor force, if previous jobs gains are revised downward, which means we have less jobs, and if black unemployment remains substantially higher than white unemployment, like almost double, we need to talk about all of it. Not because Republicans are right, not because Democrats are right, not because blacks should have jobs over whites, but because Americans deserve to understand what the numbers actually say so they can adjust and prepare. Here's my question for you. When politicians still tell you that unemployment rate is down, should they be required to talk about labor force participation and how many people actually left the workforce? Let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think. So the next time someone tells you unemployment went down, so the job market must be getting stronger, you now know the question to ask. What happened to the labor force? Because you can have fewer working people and fewer people counted as unemployed and lower unemployment rate all at the same time. That's not a trick. That's how the math works. And understanding the differences is exactly how you stop a politician from using one stat to tell you an entire economic story when it doesn't. I'm Mesco Latimer. This is Money and Politics Simplified, where we don't tell you what to think. We give you the numbers so you can think yourself. Have a good night.
Talking money, talking power.